Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for Chit Chat Across the Pond. This is episode number 830 for February 25th, 2026, and I'm your host, Allison Sheridan. Well, this week our guest is the charming Adam Angst of Tidbits. How are you doing today, Adam?
I'm doing fine. Charming. I like them charming. Who do I get to charm today?
I got tired of saying delightful, so I went to the thesaurus today and looked up words that mean delightful. I'm glad you noticed. So I'm starting to think we should rename this conversation. Instead of Chit Chat Across the Pond, it should be, what's tickling Adam's brain? Because that's what I said to you when I was looking through your articles, and I can tell the one that got in there and festered and caused all kinds of fun stuff to come out. And the one I found was an article, kind of a thought piece, I would say, called How Siri Could Become the Mac's New Help System. And I thought that was a really interesting angle to not just, oh, Siri's stupid. I hate it. It's stupid and it'll never be anything but stupid and Apple missed everything. I'm getting a little weary of that conversation. So thinking about something cool that Siri could do, and I'm really intrigued by this idea.
And pretty realistically, that, I actually just today had an article like on my list that I wanted to write, and I did a little bit of research. And I'm like, nope, nothing there. Like, that's not going to happen. It's like this article idea is just a fantasy. And so whereas Siri is a new help system, I think there's actually some bones to this. And I didn't actually say this in the article, but part of what triggered this thought was I was looking at ScreenFloat, which is one of the very, very nice screen capture utilities, and had been using it for a while, but mostly the way I just use these things. And it wasn't until I started writing about it that I started looking more deeply at the features. And I'm like, ooh, it does that. That's super cool. And, and it wasn't that these features were really hidden. I just hadn't taken the time to explore significantly and didn't have any way of really learning what the possibilities were. And I remember having the thought while I was doing this is like, wouldn't it be nice if I could just talk to a chatbot about that knows everything about this app?
Right?
That
is one of the uses I use it for a lot.
But they're not very good a lot of the time. That a lot of the time you can get better information from ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah.
But why isn't it better in the app? The app, the developer anyway, knows everything. That's the horse's mouth. We want the horse's mouth talking to us here. And so that was kind of the idea behind this, was just like if only I could find out everything an app can do from the app itself, wouldn't that be cool? And then I'm like, oh, and what that is a help system. And
people don't like writing documentation.
People do not like writing documentation. Developers are really, really bad at it. And
I've been finding developers that just simply don't. Like, it's a really complex app, and I go looking, and no, I don't have a manual. You can email me, though, and they're real helpful and answer you, but it's like, you can put this into a help file.
You could put it into a help file. And actually, like, I was just writing about 1Password, the price increase, and I wanted to, figure out some of what it did and everything. They've got great documentation. I mean, the 1Password documentation, there's a lot of it there, and it's pretty well done, very nicely laid out. Like, wow, that's great. And, that's unfortunately also the exception. That all too many apps have little, I have an FAQ, but they certainly don't have anything specific. And even more so, however, developer documentation doesn't usually cover not as much how do you accomplish something, but how do you accomplish a task rather than how do you use the app. You understand the distinction?
Right. Not where is this menu pick.
Right.
But I want to do this thing. What are the things I need to know to be able to do?
Right. How am I going to do these multiple actions in the app to accomplish this task? That's something which is really pretty lacking in most, even pretty good developer documentation.
Right. Like, I want to use this pixel editing app to remove the hair behind somebody's head.
Or I'll give you a better example. In Preview, one of the ways, something I use a lot, it's a technique for like erasing stuff. Preview is not very good at erasing stuff,
right.
But you can copy some white background or whatever the background color is from one place as just a square or a rectangle, and then paste it somewhere else, and then resize it to overwrite
Oh, I
stuff.
didn't know you could do that in preview.
Yeah.
Huh, okay.
See? This is a really useful way to just, like, redact something or, like, "Oh, I don't even want this to be shown," like, it's not
Right,
helpful it's
redaction, not
shown.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, and so and you're not doing anything or you're not erasing in some weird way that suddenly now it's a transparent bit of the image or anything like that. It's just like, I'm gonna put piece of paper over this thing, and it's gonna
Mhm,
merge perfectly. And so,
right.
would Apple ever tell you to do that? No. And would any developer tell you to do that? No, probably not, because it's a technique.
Right, it's not how to copy a section, how to
Right,
do a marquee cut. They would do that, but not why you would wanna do it.
precisely.
Okay.
And so that was kind of the other when I started thinking more and more about this kind of Siri as a help system concept, I was like, well, you really do need that information that people have posted on the internet about how they do something. And you want to
Yeah.
bring that in because that's really what users are mostly interested in. Like, I have
Well
this thing I want to accomplish. How do
well,
I
that's
do
what
that?
LLMs are really good at, is
Yeah,
finding those, except when they tell you to do things that don't actually exist.
that's a problem often because of versions. Like, how often have you asked a chatbot how to do something and it gives you an answer and you go to the site and you're like, none of this stuff is here. And what you realize is that, well, it was in the previous version, but now, in the it's everything's changed. The interface is
Or it's in
different
the
now.
Android version and you've
Yeah,
specifically said, "I'm using iOS."
precisely. Yeah, so kind of trying to put all this stuff together. Like, if you just use the chatbot, you'll be unhappy because you don't have from the horse's mouth of the developer telling you exactly how it works in this version. But if you
Mhm.
just go to the developer, then you don't have the information from the internet about like how people have talked about using this on community forums and things like that.
Right.
And so both of those seemed like really useful things. And then it was the other trigger I had from all of this is I've been using, a system. It's called Beyond Better. Basically, it ties into Claude in the background, to do development.
Mhm.
And, I'm like, literally, I'm not looking at the code at all. Don't care. Don't care, don't wanna know, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm like, "Look, the chatbot built this. It should know what it does." Like, this
Yeah.
like code in I mean, and code one way or another, if it works, it's just like it's formalized. It actually you can read it, you can understand it
It's
if you have
deterministic.
it's deterministic, that's the word I'm looking for. And so it's this a situation where it's like, well, if you know what the structure of an app is, and maybe it's code because you're the developer, couldn't you have it self-document document itself with
Right.
help from a chatbot? Like,
Sure.
here's this code. Go write instructions for how to use it. And I'm not saying it'd be perfect. I don't care about perfect. Perfect doesn't exist, but
Mhm.
it's something that a developer could use to start from. Like, oh,
So
well, it gave me this and that's not quite right, or I wouldn't put it that way. And you were editing rather than trying to create from whole cloth, which is a huge difference.
I had Brett Terpstra, actually, Brett Terpstra worked on a plugin for WordPress just for me, and he ended up productizing it, and he put it on GitHub, and he had me take a look at it, and we were working through some stuff, and I looked, and he had done this in a matter of hours. It was insane, and he had beautiful documentation. I mean, it was phenomenal. It was really, really good, and I said, "How did you do that in length of time?" He goes, "Well, I didn't do that. I told an LLM to do that." And then what he did, so he wrote the code, then he had the LLM write the documentation, then he used the documentation to test the code, and that turned out to be really good. So he was doing
Yeah.
checking the documentation, but
Yeah.
also checking his code at the same time. So it's a beautiful use of it.
Yeah. So in any event, this is where I kind of like maybe Apple Intelligence could actually do something useful for a change. Like, wouldn't this be cool if it had some of these capabilities? And if you just had, I mean, like we know how everyone knows how to use Siri. We all complain about Siri, but the fact is, you just ask Siri a question and it works. May not give you the right answer, it may fail in other ways, but like the interface of working with Siri is well understood. And wouldn't it be interesting if we could build multiple types of help information into what Siri is drawing from? So, I mean, we've already seen, if you look in, the latest versions of the operating systems, you can actually ask Siri questions about how to do things. And for very simple ones where it's in like the tips app or the user guide, it'll give you an answer.
I have yet to get an answer from anything I've asked. I was all
Really?
excited when I saw that. I said, that's fantastic. What a great use. You know everything about this. This is all yours. Your company, it's all you know it all. And it's relatively small compared to everything you need to know on the internet. So you should be able to do this. And it didn't know the answer to any questions I've asked yet.
I've found that some, like if you say things like, how do I resize columns in the Finder? It can get that.
Okay.
But I will admit, the first time, I mean, I was testing, so I kept asking it the question. The first couple of times it was a little haphazard, and then after a while it sort of settled down and kept giving me the same answer. So but it was like, but so it was kind of it did a little better than I actually expected once I was sort of forcing myself to use it, and saying, how do I do X? How do I do Y? I don't know. I wasn't giving it real questions. I was giving it questions that I knew the answer to really easily.
Okay. So you could tell if it was wrong.
I could tell it was wrong, right? Like here's an example. I mean, can we get Siri to tell us how to reveal the library folder in the Finder?
Ah, that's a good one.
Let's see. Oh wait, how do I?
So how do you initiate this? I forget. Do you have to turn on Type to Siri first?
I don't use Siri on my Mac enough, so I don't.
I think you have to enable Type to Siri, and in order to do that, you need to figure out where it is in system settings. So of course you could use search in there. Let's see, Type to Siri. Oh, Type to Siri does show up in search.
It's FNS, I believe, in my system anyway.
FNS what?
Literally FN and the S key.
Oh, function.
Yeah. I don't call it a function.
Oh, it does. Yeah, why don't you call it function? That's what it means.
Because they're function keys at the top.
Yeah, but that's the key that enables them to be function keys.
No, they exist. For me, they predate this key by so many decades. It's just I don't.
Okay, just say get off my lawn. I'm ready for you. Right. So now I forget what question we were going to ask it.
Okay, so we're going to ask it, how do I reveal the library folder in the Finder?
The library.
How do I reveal the library folder in the Finder?
Not the Finder, it's Finder. If we're going to be pedantic.
That's Apple.
Press and hold the Option key, select library from the Go menu.
Yep, I got that too.
That's it. Okay. Look at that.
So it got it right. But, okay. How do I permanently reveal the library? How do I permanently reveal the library? Now it's just like freaking on me.
Yeah, let's see.
How do I permanently reveal the library folder in the Finder?
Okay. Let's see if it's going to do that.
Nope. Give me the same thing.
Well, now it's giving me discussion threads. Oh, look, here's one on talk.tidbits.com.
Yay.
Adobe.
It gave
Reddit,
me the same thing.
And YouTube.
So, I mean, the answer there, of course, for anyone who's wondering is that stop. quick look, did the wrong thing.
Real time.
If you go to your user folder in the Finder and do view show options.
And let's see, view show options. I know I have mine showing, so I forget that. So that's one of the little show library folder. There it is.
Show library folder shows only when the top level user folder is selected and you open show option.
I just threw mine in the sidebar like 800 years ago.
I don't go into it often enough. So for me, it's just but as long as it's showing in the library folder,
That's true. I probably don't do it often enough. I'm taking it out, Adam. Good advice.
But see, that's a perfect example, right? It's an unusual thing to want. I'm sure the chatbot can give you the correct answer because it's well documented on the internet. But why doesn't Siri give you the right answer?
Yeah.
And part of it is that I'll bet that's not in the user guide. Like that little checkbox is not in the user guide. I'm willing to bet. And so it just
Okay.
doesn't know. But there's no reason it shouldn't know because it has access to the entire guts of macOS. Like
Right.
at a basic level, it knows. I mean, Apple knows there's a checkbox there with show library folder.
And
right?
what it does.
And what it does. I mean, that string, that code is all right there. And Apple, or any developer for their own app, could, at least in theory, use that information to inform a help documentation.
Right.
Without doing anything extra, just like you said Brett Terpstra did.
Right. So I think what you're getting to is that this should not be a stretch goal.
Right. I mean, I think this is, in terms of like coming up with what Apple Intelligence should be, this is the core thing.
Table stakes.
This is table stakes. I mean, this is you should be able to do this because this is something that everyone wants every day.
I'm glad to hear you say that because I 100% agree. What I hear from everybody yapping on the internet is that everybody wants agentic AI. And I don't know that that's true, but I know everybody
I've got
wants to
opinions
know.
there too.
I do too. I know that everybody wants to know how to do stuff on their computer, and they should have a place to ask for it on their computer that is definably correct, that is known by the operating system itself. I think that's a legitimate thing that people absolutely want. They don't want to have to go to Reddit and read a bunch of responses to people asking the same question, right?
Well, and so there's also, a basic issue here. It's the classic, give a man a fish and, versus teaching him to fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
That if there are times when you want an agent, in essence, to do something for you because you're only ever going to do it once and just make it happen. I don't care. But for the kind of stuff we're talking about, the whole point is to learn how to do something so that you can do it more quickly, efficiently, effectively, multiple times in the future. And so I think, on the kind of like, is this agentic? No, I don't think this should be agentic basically at all. I think this should be, I'm going to tell you how to do this.
Okay, right.
Apple has done a whole bunch of help systems over the years, including some which have like literally shown you how to do things. What do they call it? Macintosh Guide. Way back when.
Yeah.
And so, and they weren't that helpful. It was sort of a nice idea, but it was so much work that no one did them. And then if you don't know that you can depend on getting information, you don't go there. So I'm like, I think this is, again, we don't need to go overboard here. This can just be feed me the information via text. So it doesn't need to be anything more than that.
Well,
to start. You
Yeah,
can go
I would
further,
stretch goal
but
with
let's
some
get to the
screenshots.
text first.
But Apple doesn't believe in doing that in their documentation anyway. They love to go, yes, click the back button. What's the back button look like? Come on, give me a hint. But they never do that. So I'm not even going to pretend that that's going to happen.
Yeah, right. But the agentic thing's another issue, though.
Okay.
Which is if you had a person at your beck and call, a real person, not like an imaginary genie who like can do everything, but a real person who doesn't know stuff and makes mistakes and all that kind of thing. How much would you delegate to them? Because I think that I just started thinking about this. I haven't written about this yet, but I think it comes into play in the agentic concept, which is that there's a little bit of a lifestyle issue going on here. Like if you're a busy executive who has a secretary or personal assistant, or as they're often called, these administrative assistants, as they're called these days, you've probably gotten used to delegating certain kinds of things because you have no choice. Like you're just too busy. Your world is such that you don't have time to do this. Someone makes if you want to have lunch with this person, you have to talk to their assistant. Like that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not that person, is it is there any win to you at all in having some agentic system like schedule lunch for you?
I definitely think so. Now, I do want to support administrative assistants as they usually know how to do the things better than you do that you're asking them to do.
Precisely.
But one of the things I hate doing is I hate making appointments. I hate it. It's just like I was so happy when we started having you on consistently because I didn't have to ask new people all the time. And it's not that you're that good. It's just that's the main reason. But
every month it just shows up in the calendar. Oh, talking to Adam. But see, there's a difference here, which is that in fact, you and I are negotiating those dates. Like,
yeah,
if you had an assistant, an agentic assistant, and it might even know your calendar, could it actually usefully negotiate those dates?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm sure it's going to go, yeah, but I don't really like to start meetings until after lunch. Or, I know I said 10 o'clock is okay, but I don't really want to do that. Or I plan on walking the dog then and I didn't tell you and all those kinds of things. So, yeah, I agree. That's problematic.
If there's perfect data, then it could do it. But perfect data exists only in your head, and probably not even then. As I said, I came to this interview from another meeting, which was scheduled at 1 o'clock, and I had it's like I have to leave at 1:28 because I have a 1:30. But that I knew I was going to miss some of that meeting because I had pre-scheduled this, and
information it wouldn't have. Well, but there's things that Agentic AI can do where they're not necessarily making decisions. I was listening to someone who has an Agentic AI that goes through his inbox and summarizes for him what it thinks that the important emails are, and the ones that it thinks need a response. It actually drafts responses for him, but puts those drafts into a drafts folder. So it's doing some of the work.
Anything that drafts for me, I'm like shooting instantly.
What are you getting rid of?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I don't. I do not want anything replying for me. I know because
I agree. I agree.
No. I mean, but part of it is like the only place I've really seen this in action actually is Apple Intelligence, where in messages it's constantly suggesting things, responses. I have never accepted one, and one has never been correct. Like never even like close to something I would say. Awesome. Yeah. So there's a service I'm actually testing right now called Extra, which sort of does that with email.
Okay.
That it looks at your email and kind of tells you, what needs action, everything like that. And it's cool, actually. I think it's actually doing a relatively good job, but I'm not finding it useful because, well, I can't. How can I trust everything in it?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what if I disagree about what's important?
Do you think we'll change our minds on this? Because I think you and I are 100% aligned on this. Do you think we'll start to come around when it's not wrong so often? Because if it's wrong, answering fairly basic questions, like when I tell it I want the menu choice in iOS and it gives me the Android answer, if it's wrong that often when it's something that doesn't matter, having it read my inbox and come up with replies and decide what's important, I can't tolerate a 20% failure rate on that.
I think I'm worried. I don't want to say worried. I think it may be like OCR, where you're not actually gonna tolerate much error rate at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right? With OCR, 99% accuracy is not good enough. Right?
I guess depending on what it is.
Oh no, it's horrible. 99% accuracy in OCR, there are so many mistakes. Like the accuracy rate's much higher in OCR these days.
Okay.
And
well, I'm thinking about like transcripts. You are very precise on your transcripts. This conversation we're having will have a transcript created by Whisper AI. I will not check it. It will misspell nosilicast throughout it. It'll just come up with bizarre phrases you've never heard of. And I'm okay because I say a completely unedited transcript. Wish you the best of luck. I mean, what it's good for is trying to figure out when we said something so you can scrub through and
right.
go listen to it.
Right. That said, interestingly, So my wife works for the Cornell School of Industrial and Labor Relations, and interviews professors and things like that for writing articles for their communications. And one of the things they've talked about is actually that the interviews are great, and who for coming up with an article, but they really want to be posting the transcripts now
Mhm.
because chatbots love transcripts.
Oh, really?
Right, that if
Interesting.
you are, sort of in an SEO, kind of like you wanna get your ideas more into the world,
Mhm.
the transcripts of your recordings, when they get ingested into a model,
That's
that's
truth.
your finger on the scale right
So
there.
I should make it spelled Nosilicast correctly at least. Or Bart shouldn't be Bert every time. It seems to like that as
"Hey, you
well.
Bert."
I do wanna back up on the person who had the agentic AI reading their inbox and creating these things, had a problem with syncing, of the database for mail, so it erased his inbox.
Oh, this was the Meta person?
The No,
Oh,
no, this is someone I
this
know.
happened. This was a big thing in the news. Some Meta research, some Meta say AI safety researcher, um, just did something with OpenClaw, and it
This was
completely got
OpenClaw,
it.
and it was a
It
friend of mine, not from
oh,
Meta. Lost
well, so multiple
750
people have had it
emails.
erase their entire inboxes.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. Cool, cool. But he's still a believer, which is interesting. I mean, he was able to recover it from Time Machine, but it was tricky. He had a lot of work to do to go get it back. But of course, it's synced across all of his devices too. So it erased his inbox everywhere. But he was able to get it back, but he's still a big believer because he just loves his feature so much. And I also think there are people, well, most people are very different than you and me. And but I know someone who is a terrific podcaster and a terrible writer. Doesn't like it, hates it, doesn't do it well, typos, grammatical problems, and their solution is they haven't written any of their show notes ever. It's always done
Oh,
by an
yeah,
AI. It's a
yeah,
transcript that they go back and they edit. And so they are not writers, they are talkers.
yeah.
Now, you and I are brilliant that we can do both, but, you know, not everybody's like us, so maybe there's value in that.
No, and people are very much, and that's a little bit of what I'm saying actually with the whole agentic thing is that it's going to be somewhat of a personality thing, where how much of a control freak are you?
Mhm.
I'm a little high on the scale, frankly, and also what are your skills? Remember back in the day, lawyers used to do dictation. They had a person who would come in and they would just dictate all their letters. And
I did the dictation. I had a little
oh,
dictaphone, and that was my first job as a Kelly girl, as a typist.
wow, yeah. So but that was a skill. And I
Mhm.
actually I remember running into a young guy who was a lawyer at an airport. And this was in the early '90s, and he said that that skill had actually already started to fade away. That young lawyers weren't expecting they were going to go somewhere and be given an assistant who would
Right.
type for them.
Mhm.
And this was a problem. And the reason why he and I were talking was because he had carpal tunnel, and so he
Mm.
couldn't type. And
Mhm.
but he was at a law firm that was willing to give him, an assistant. And so he said he had to learn to give dictation.
Okay.
That it's
Okay.
actually not as easy as it looks, in the sense of,
To
you
think
have to be
fluidly.
you have to think in what you want to see on the page. And I've discovered, in the kind of how people think in different ways. And I actually don't know what I'm saying until I've said it or written it. I do not pre-think my what I'm saying and then write it down or say it.
Interesting.
Um, and other people are very much the opposite. And we actually ran into a friend of Tanya's from high school. We were at a high school reunion. We were sharing this little anecdote, and she's like, "Well, that explains why my marriage failed." Basically, she was someone who would talk through everything, and her husband was someone who wouldn't say anything until he had come up with his opinion. And so
Interesting.
by that time she's just talking and he's already decided what the answer is. And boy, those two do not mix well, because he wasn't willing to compromise at that point. He already had the answer.
Right, right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
had a boss once tell me, "Allison, did you know that you don't have to say everything you think?" Adam,
Yes, you do.
I wrote it down because it hadn't occurred to me. Didn't change my behavior, but it was a profound moment that realizing that that's what I do. And
But as a result, like I have tried dictation numerous times, and I use it. I use it pretty heavily in messages on the iPhone because
yeah.
it's just too hard to type there. But I've found that I really cannot dictate my articles because I need to see the words as they appear on the screen. And to be fair, Apple's dictation, poor as it is, works better for me than all the fancy new whisper flow and monologues and whatnot that like use LLMs in the background. And they're very quick, but they're not word at a time.
That's interesting. What I've found is that dictation on the watch is the best. Dictation on the phone is in the middle, and dictation on the Mac is the worst, and I would like to understand why. I mean, I'm on a $400 microphone. You ought to be able to understand what I'm saying. But it seems like on the watch, it's like, it's usually, hey, 99% correct. No, it's like 95% correct. But I'm thinking like 60, 70 on the Mac, which I don't understand at all. But I agree. I've tried it on the Mac to write my articles, but I'm thinking.
Right.
I'm not dictating something I already know. I'm thinking up what I'm going to say, and it's
Precisely.
a different process altogether.
Right. It's like the typing tests don't make sense anymore. No one types something in. You compose. So how fast you type is not really related to your fingers in the same way that it used to be.
I don't know if I'm going to buy that. I still think that being able to type quickly is a highly competitive advantage.
Oh, it is. I'm not arguing that, but my point is that typing speed is not bounded purely by your skill anymore.
Oh, sure.
It's bounded by how quickly you can think of what the words should be.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So anyway, I realize we've digressed. I'm bad at that. We've digressed significantly.
No, you're very good
but I think
at that.
This is all related. That what we're coming up with is that people really do think and work in different ways, and that significantly impacts how different systems work for them. And the help systems is one of those that that's one of those situations where you want to have information available that can even just tell you what something is named, right? It's
yeah.
a funny little like, what is this? Or you're telling me to click this, but I can't find it. Where did it put it?
Oh my gosh, I spend so much time even with humans I'm texting with. I was talking to, I think it was AT&T the other day, and I wanted to know how to do something. Well, no, there was a human. I got past the bot because the bot was worthless. A lot of times the bots are very good now. I will say there's been an improvement in bots since they have AI in them. But the human didn't have AI or I. And I kept asking where this thing was, and they kept saying, oh, well, it's called blah, blah, blah. And I said, yes, I can't see that. Where is it? What does the button look like? Okay, finally, I'm down to going, okay, I have a square with a littler square. I have an arrow. I have a little face. Which one of these am I supposed to be pressing on? Because they would say what it did, not what it looked like. And so I couldn't find it. Now, let me get into the agentic thing for a second. Back to intelligent Siri is an agentic AI. What if you could say, how do I change my wallpaper? And it brought up system settings for you and showed you the screen that you should be on in order to enable it. That would be agentic. Just tiny agentic.
And that's a little bit of what Macintosh Guide did, as I remember. That it could like show you menus and like highlight menu items and things like that.
Actually, yeah. If you go to the help menu, assuming most people know this, but if you go to the help menu in any app and you type in a word, like you're looking for where in all these drop downs is this thing, like if you just go to help and type copy in pretty much any app, you go down to copy and it does a big blue arrow going, here it is. Hey, fool, it's under edit copy. Here it is. And you can hit it right from there, or you can navigate to it yourself. And it could do something like that.
But even that doesn't work in most apps.
Oh, that works in what app doesn't that work in? I use it all the time. I don't.
Let me see.
Okay, now go through all your apps and find the one that didn't work. But really, I don't find that to fail like ever.
Okay,
If it's
maybe
in
maybe
there,
I'm
I can find it.
Oh, no, I think you're right. I'm sorry. What I was thinking was, that I was trying whenever I type in there, and it doesn't usually come up to for me in terms of, like, just what are the menu items. Most of the time when I type something in there, in an app, all I get is the standard Apple stuff for the operating system. The developers provided no information.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You're
Right.
talking
So
about
it's like
actual help,
right.
not just
So
find
there's
me
no
the menu
actual
pick.
or like 'cause I mean, yeah, I remember what it was. I was in 1Password. And if you go into 1Password and you look in the help menu, they've got a bunch of stuff, support forum tutorial videos, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
But if you search on sharing, you know, add family members to a family sharing group, change media sharing settings
Yeah.
on Mac. I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
not what like, it has nothing to do with the app. Why is it even telling me this?"
But that's a failure of macOS, I think.
Yes. Well, it's a failure of the developer not to build help information into the Mac help viewer.
But even
They're
if
keeping it all
it
separate.
does, then you still get these below that, I think. Sometimes you get the right answers, but then it's separated and then it'll start telling you stuff
Oh,
about
very
macOS.
possibly, yeah. I mean,
I've
as I
seen
say,
that.
I can't remember the last time I got good help viewer information from anything 'cause I
Yeah.
never look anymore, right? There's no point.
Except for
Um,
finding that menu. That's
yeah.
that menu item. That one I use all the time. Life's too short to go look for it by doing all the drop downs. I type in there all the time.
Yeah. I
But
might have to do that more now. I have gotten so it's like there's how many times do you have to fail before you never go back to something,
oh, the first
right?
week. If
I
it
mean,
fails
because
the first week, I'm gone.
I think that's been my problem is that this failed to give me help information so many times so quickly that I just like it's never useful for anything. And so I think being able to just type the menu items in there, I literally did not realize that worked in all apps.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And I know what the Finder ones are. I mean, it's not help in Apple apps, so it's only interesting. It would only be interesting in something like I don't know, Photoshop or Affinity, and even there they probably have so much of it is icons that it wouldn't really do much. But yeah,
Yeah,
no, I can
that
see
is
that
the
this could be.
category of the worst of most apps, I think, is that it's really hard to figure out what things are called. I like the Affinity apps because you can hover over them and they tell you this is brush, this is dodge,
Yeah,
this one's burn. So you've got a fighting chance. But the apps that don't have the hover text, just shoot me now.
yeah, right. Just hopeless. So. And yeah, but I'm looking in Arc, for instance, where yes, the menu items, it knows all the menu items. So this is a good example. This is supporting what I'm saying. I sound like sound chatbot. This supports what you were saying, Adam. Because like the help system is automatically being able to pick up what all of the menu commands are. Right? Developer didn't have to. I'm guessing anyway. I believe the developer doesn't have to do anything to make that happen.
Yeah.
So why can't it do more? It's got all the code. It's got all the dialogues. It's got all the windows. It knows everything.
Hmm.
I mean, it doesn't have the source code. The developer would have to work with the source code to build this kind of information in. But it certainly has all of the interface controls and everything like that. And so, again, it's good that it does menus, but what about all the little icons? Those
Yeah.
are much harder to deal with.
Right, right. There are a lot of people who we've talked before about how people see things and
Mhm.
you and I see things differently and other people do, but being able to define those icons almost always I think would help. I mean, once you know, but if you don't know,
And even when still have trouble because they're kinda little and they don't look like anything to me. I'm sitting here looking at the Zoom menu items, and man, I can never find, like, React, or it's not React. I know what it is. We use certain reactions in my Runners Club board meetings for voting. And so React has a little, up pointing arrow on
mhm,
it, and you don't click on that, you click on the actual React heart icon. It has a little heart as the icon. I'm like, Why?
It's hard.
Literally every time I need to vote, I have to figure out where to click because I don't know. And then I'm like, oh, it's got a little triangle. I'll click the little triangle. And then it gives me, play chime for raised hands, recognize hand gestures. Like, no, where's my check mark? Whine. This isn't a get off my lawn. This is how I think in ways that don't match these interfaces.
Right. Right. And those things are changing. I mean, if it was a thumbs up, maybe you would have triggered off of it, but a heart not.
That doesn't help. I mean, I think the real problem I'm having is they've got 2 targets on one button.
Oh.
Which I think is a big mistake.
Oh.
Ew. I mean, right? Because clicking the little and they do, and if you hover over it, again, keep in mind, I'm doing this while I'm running a meeting. Like, so I can't just stare at this. When I'm looking at it now, they actually do a pretty good job, Zoom does, of highlighting the button. When you hover over it, the button highlights in a certain way, and the little triangle thing highlights in a different way to indicate they're 2 different targets. So like, it's not badly done entirely. It's sort of overloading what's there.
Right,
and I would have argued that they should have had just one click, and then whatever these play chime and recognize hand gestures should have been in that menu too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Hey,
one thing at a time.
Getting back to Siri and providing us more useful information in this way, you kind of walked through a 3-layered approach to where it would get the information. Can you talk to that?
Well, this is in some ways exactly what we've been describing. So layer 1, information from the developer. This is data from the horse's mouth, and this could be handwritten, and it could be generated during development. I mean, wouldn't it be cool if Xcode would help document your app while you're writing it?
Yeah, can I write a test for you on that? Can I add the accessibility requirements? Can I document this for you? Why, yes, you can.
Please go right ahead. And you know what? If that's not as good as the developer, the ideal documentation from a developer, so be it. It's better than what we get from most people.
That's agentic, though. That's agentic. It's doing stuff for you, Adam. You okay with that?
Developers, developers can do anything they want with agentic stuff. I'm talking about people, normal people.
Insulting 30% of the audience in one fell swoop. Okay, but no, I would agree.
But it's like Xcode should be helping in this way. And my complaint with 1Password, that wasn't built into the Mac Help Viewer. They have great documentation, but it's out on the web. Well, if Xcode was doing it, maybe they could have it in both places. That you do want it on the web, no question, partly so it trains the chatbots and it's accessible to everyone who isn't already a user. But it should also be in the app so you don't have to go somewhere else to get it. So development documentation is level 1.
All right.
Level 2 is this kind of, I call it implicit information. And this is a little bit of what you were just showing me with, how the help menu can always find menu items. That there is a certain amount of information about an app which can be known purely by looking at its structure. People don't know this, but if you control click on an app, you get show package contents. And if you select that, you can look at all of the stuff inside the package that makes up the app, including, things for buttons and, windows, and like all that is going to be in there in some way, shape, or form. And so macOS has to be able to display this stuff. That's kind of it's how it all works, right? It's the system knows how to display these system controls, these menus, these buttons, et cetera, et cetera. So it could easily, just as it can know the menu structure from the help item, it could know more about an app based on this. So in Photoshop and Affinity and whatnot, we've got tooltips. Why can't we search for those in the Macintosh Help Viewer? Those are all just known to the system. They don't have to be called out in any way, any special way.
And again, the help viewer, you're talking about the help menu in the menu bar for every app. Okay.
Yeah, the help. Yeah.
I never thought
And
about that. It could actually be crawling the contents of the
yeah,
package file. Hmm.
yeah. Why not? I mean, that stuff is all just, and it's like, it's not going to be super helpful. It's literally going to be like, what is this called and where is it? But
Yeah.
that's about it. But still, again, there's a lot of those buttons and, in a lot of apps where you're like, I don't know where this is. I can't find it.
Actually, I like where you're going. I just started traversing the tree of the application Acorn, which is another image editor, and I was kind of flipping through the different folders, and nothing looked interesting. But I got to resources, and I found a little icon. It's a TIFF file, and it's called align dash left. Well, that could be the tooltip right there, right? That could mean align dash left.
Yep.
I've auto levels. I don't know what that one is. Bebigan. Anyway, it would those names that do exist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that the other thing in this speculative Apple intelligence powered future that we have is that you don't probably know if you're asking these kinds of questions, you don't know what it's called. What was that one?
Right.
Bebigan or something? Like you're not
Yeah.
even guess that.
Uh-huh.
But perhaps that's a term of art in some graphics field, and an LLM would probably know that.
That is one of the things I like best about using an LLM is I can say, so like when I'm using Affinity and I want to do the thing where I'm going to use a brush and I'm going to make it lighter. Which one? What's that? Which one is that? And then it goes, oh, that's dodge, not burn, or whichever it is, because I always get them backwards. But I do that
And I
all
have
the
no
time.
idea what dodge and burn mean at all. So, right, precisely.
But it's like asking a really patient friend who allows you to speak the way you want to speak.
Right.
Bart always makes me speak very precisely in programming terms, which is good, and he's training me and he's teaching me. But sometimes I just want to go, the thing where like you got 3x4 or something, there's an array, Allison, he doesn't say it like that. He's always very patient.
Yes, precisely.
But when I talk to Helma, she lets me babble around it and then tells me what it is a little bit
Right.
more. So it's good to have both methods. But that's one of the things I really like about an LLM and can be useful in this where you're trying to query the system. If you knew what it was called, you could probably find it, but I don't know what it's called.
Yes. And so that's, again, part of like why I'm suggesting that Siri be the interface to this, because you can babble at it. I mean, you can't babble at Siri at all well now, but this future Siri that we're going to have any day now, oh, wait, not any day now because we pushed it off till probably the next version of iOS and macOS. Sigh. But you're supposed to be able to babble at these things.
I just had another thought. You know who I just sounded like? Was my father. My father could not spell his way out of a paper bag, and people would always tell him to look things up in the dictionary, and he'd say, if I can't spell it, how am I supposed to find it in the dictionary?
Yes.
Swings and roundabouts, we're right back where we were.
Yes, precisely. So
okay, so that's the implicit information that's
layer number 2. And like it should be just there. Improve your help system by doing this. And then the third part is the external user generated knowledge. That, when the transcript of this podcast comes out, my technique of redacting information in preview by just copying some background color and pasting it over the thing I want to get rid of will now be in the public domain, so to speak. Certainly in the community space of knowledge.
Right.
And so that's tremendously useful. It cannot be the only thing because, again, versioning issues, just general hallucination issues, et cetera, and people just get stuff wrong. I mean, like,
right.
Well, let's stop whining about hallucinations when people make so freaking many mistakes and publish them.
Right.
So you got to take everything with a grain of salt, but it's still hugely useful because that's where we get our techniques.
It would be nice if Siri gave you these in that order. Like, I know this to be true. And then the last one is, well, I found these answers on the internet. They might be right. They might be helpful. You'd like those to not be at the same level of truthiness.
I mean, hopefully in these kinds of scenarios, we actually have a Siri that is a little bit more conversational. And so that could be implied purely through text.
Yeah. So what else you got?
Right.
Can you check external sources or something?
or just in general, like, and I found this discussion that seems to be along the same lines. Maybe try this, maybe try that.
Yeah.
That's how a person would do it. You know,
You've turned me on to using Perplexity that you called an answer engine, and I'm sold, man. I
yeah,
Google doesn't exist for me anymore. I just start with
no,
Perplexity, and one of the things I like is I'll ask it a question and it'll say, "Do you want to know more about this or more about that? Or were you thinking along these lines? Is that what you meant?" And yesterday it was just like, why, yes, I do. I do wanna know the answer to that question, and it was like, that was a really big leap that I had not seen before, and so
yeah,
for it to be able to do that on a smart Siri, that would be good. So
yeah.
what has to happen to make this go? For purely developers getting on board? Xcode has to come along?
So, I mean, developers can always get on board if they have documentation, right?
Mhm,
I mean, it would be really, really nice if Xcode, which Apple did just sort of add certain levels of chatbot
mhm,
support to Xcode.
mhm.
Not being a developer, I don't really know how that works, but I do think that we could do that right now. Implicit information, I think it would requires some level of research into how much can be determined by looking at these things. Like, if you just look at all the button names, does that tell you something useful? Probably.
Mhm.
Can you find them? Does, like, I don't know, if you're writing this thing in Swift UI, does that tell? Do you know something about that if you're
Oh,
the
right,
operating system?
right.
Right? Like, I just don't know. Um, so I think there's definitely some work for Apple to do there. And then the external user generated knowledge. Oh man, that's like falling off a log.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
that part. It's out
that's
there.
here today, and ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and Perplexity are already knocking it out of the park with that. And so, what Siri would be bringing to that, I think, or this Apple Intelligence system that I'm proposing would bring to that, is a little bit more rigor in terms of which information is more valuable because it comes from the developer,
Mhm.
and how versioned is it? Like, is this still
Oh, right.
true in version 6.0, and because it's changed since version 3.5, which was what was last you have in your training model as well.
That's a really important point. Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and the user-generated content is something of concern with a l Stack Overflow has gone through a, significant drop-off in user usage since, ChatGPT first came out, and so people aren't asking questions, so people aren't answering questions, and some of that is okay because basically every question that has ever been asked about HTML or JavaScript or CSS has already been answered. That's already done. We've got that one.
Right.
Python, maybe there's some newer questions, but a lot of that's already been answered. You get into Swift, maybe that's another place where things are still need to be humans need to be providing content.
Right.
As long as like it's been asked a million times already stuff, that can be an AI. That's great. But I'm a little concerned that the newer stuff might not
Right.
start to
Right.
exist. And then we could hit a point where this stuff just starts eating itself. The wrong answers are multiplying.
Yeah, I think the developers are well aware of that. I
Mhm.
don't really believe that's an issue at this point.
Right.
That
Not yet.
Yeah, no, well, but no, Mike, I think my point is that I think the whole concept that, it's just going to kind of devolve and get worse because it's training on its own text. Don't believe that's actually true. Um,
Okay. My
that
son some work at work where they've got an AI that's trained on everything in their internal systems, which is awesome. And he asked it to summarize a bunch of stuff, and it came out with a reference to a report that didn't exist. And he was like, "Okay, so that doesn't exist," but he couldn't get it to stop referring to that non-existent thing, and
no.
it kept talking about what this non-existent thing was telling him, and that was kind of concerning when it's something such a closed system. And I've heard other people talking about how if you talk long enough to an
Ah,
AI, it starts to forget, and so what they do is they at some point, they say, "Summarize everything we've talked about,
yes.
the salient points, the things we've determined." Then they copy that summary and then feed it brand new in, say, forget everything you know.
Yes.
Here's what you know. Let's start from there. And then
Yeah.
it keeps its knowledge.
That's the context window problem. And that is actually a very good way to do it, is to summarize a conversation and then start a new one. With your son's situation, actually, where I would look to that causing that, in fact, is probably that it's not a very high-end LLM.
Maybe not. Yeah,
That
I
if
don't
it's
know
an
which
internal
one it was.
system, you're not getting the latest of what, GPT 5.2 and Claude 4.6 and all those,
Right.
I mean, this is part of the reason why it's so embarrassing where Apple is that the AI world is on like a 3-month revision cycle, and Apple's now 2 years behind.
Yeah.
So
Apple's jumping out of a moving freight train or bullet train. Sorry.
Right, bullet train, precisely. And so like they're going to have to be able to figure out how to get onto that train at some point, and then the question will be if they can actually stay there, because if they'll just fall behind so quickly because now ChatGPT does X. Well, why wouldn't you do
There's no
X?
laurel resting here.
Right. So it's going to be really interesting, but and partly, like I kind of beat on Apple a little bit about Siri and Apple Intelligence because I think they really missed the boat. But simultaneously, I want to see them succeed. Like I really do think that Apple has something to offer here, and so that I consider this criticism constructive in that, like, really, this would be a good thing to do. Like, this is where you could do it. Image Playground? No. Like, just toss it, like, fine, whatever. It's just not, that is not something which is changing, is moving the needle. Whereas something that actually makes the platform, usable in a way that no one else can do, that I think makes a difference.
I like your thinking there. I have wondered about people saying Apple's behind okay, but I don't need them to be ChatGPT. I don't need them to be Perplexity or Claude. I don't need them to be any of that. I need them to do this because I've got those other things externally, but having this internally.
The only problem is that if they are not sufficiently competitive with ChatGPT and Claude and whatnot, people won't do anything locally. In other words, they will just, like, if Apple does this and it's not good enough, you'll ignore it.
Sure.
And
they have
that's
to do
the problem.
And they have to do it right at the beginning because you and I have no patience if it fails the first couple of times. We're out.
Hey, I hear the AirDrop works now.
Yeah.
I mean, how many years did AirDrop not really work?
Perfect example. Yeah, I'm starting to believe, but man, it was a little while.
You still feel like Charlie Brown every now and then. You're like, it's gonna hold like football again. But it is really true that you've got a certain amount of patience for a new thing, and everyone's busy. Everyone has limited time to try new things, and so it has to hit it out of the park. Where you're like, I want this. This is actually solving problems for me now, and then you build it in, and that's the problem. I mean, the ChatGPTs and Perplexities and Claudes and whatnot, they're solving problems for people now. That's why we use them. We're not doing it because we want to be sucked up to. They are actually giving us useful information, and even with all of the totally legitimate problems that they have, they are useful.
Right. Well, I sure hope Apple reads this article and learns from it and thinks about it and does what we consider table stakes here, Adam. As always, this was fascinating. You can find everything Adam does over at tidbits.com. I highly recommend subscribing to the newsletter. It's fantastic. Learn a lot every single time the new issue comes out. And is that enough sucking up, not as an LLM?
Well, yes, although now I really want to know if the transcript is going to get tidbits.com right, or if it's going to mangle the URL too.
Actually, it seems to be pretty good at URLs, but that's about it. If I spell it correctly.
Always a pleasure, Allison.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Chit Chat Across the Pond Light. Did you notice there weren't any ads in the show? That's because this show is not ad-supported. It's supported by you. If you learned something, or maybe you were just entertained, consider contributing to the Podfeet podcasts. You can do that by going over to podfeet.com and look for the big red button that says Support the Show. When you click that button, you're going to find different ways to contribute. If you'd like to do a one-time donation, you can click the PayPal button. If you want to make a recurring contribution, click the weekly Patreon button. You're only charged when I publish an episode of the NosillaCast, which, let's face it, it's every single week, so I don't charge Patreon for Chit Chat Across the Pond Light or Programming by Stealth episodes. Another way to contribute is to record a listener contribution. It's a great way to help the NosillaCastaways learn from you and takes a little bit of the load off of me doing all the work. If you want to contact me for any reason, you can email me at allison@podfeet.com, and I really encourage you to follow me on Mastodon at podfeet@chaos.social. Maybe you want to talk to the other NosillaCastaways. You can do that in our Slack group at podfeet.com/Slack. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed.